So our next speaker, just so you know, don't sit down. You might as well just start standing to your feet. Not only a celebrity nutritionalist, written 4 books, New York Times best-selling author, has a voice to this generation. She's a powerhouse, and she's no virgin to the Cal Jam stage, but she is JJ Virgin. Let's stand to our feet and give a warm welcome, JJ Virgin.
Thank you. It is awesome to be back, my favorite place to speak. So I'm going to talk to you today about how I saved my son's life. Any parents here? Any? All right, then you probably would agree that you can pretty much handle anything going on as long as your kids are okay, right? Right? So it was a couple weeks before the Virgin Diet was coming out. Does anyone read the Virgin Diet? Oh, really? All right. So a couple weeks before that book was coming out, my son, my 16-year-old son, my son Bryce was 15, my son Grant was 16. My 16-year-old son went out for a walk. And the next time I saw him was this. This is the cleaned up version, actually. He was a victim of a hit and run, crossing the street. The woman got out of her car, looked at him in the street, gasped, and drove off. We got to the hospital that he was airlifted to and found out that he had a torn aorta. Now, this kills 90% of the people on the scene. His was hanging on by an onion skin. It was going to rupture sometime in the next 24 hours, and that would be it. So he had to have surgery. But he had multiple brain bleeds. And the type of surgery he had to have, they couldn't do there. I was standing with my 15-year-old son, and the doctor said, he'll never survive the airlift to the next hospital. Even if he were to survive the airlift to the next hospital, he's not going to survive that surgery. And even if he were to survive both those things, he'd be so brain damaged, it wouldn't be worth it. And my 15-year-old looked at that doctor and said, so it sounds like maybe a 0.25% chance. The doctor said, that sounds about right. And he said, we'll take those odds. Yes. So he survived the airlift. He survived the surgery. And I was standing in the hospital with him in the ICU, holding on to about 3 fingers. Those were the only ones that weren't bandaged or covered with road rash or casted. And I said, Grant, turns out his name means warrior. I said, you're a warrior, and I'm fighting for you. You've got to fight too, and we're going to get you to 110%. You're going to be better than before. And I knew he could feel me, and I couldn't show any fear, even though I was scared to death, as you can imagine. But I started right there with the question of how do I get you to be 110%? And so the next thing I did was email everybody. I actually posted on Facebook. I emailed out to everybody, and it was amazing the responses that came in. One of my girlfriends, who's a chiropractor, came into the hospital, immediately started doing energy medicine. Another woman who's here, Dr. Ann Meyer, came in with essential oils. I learned about progesterone cream. I was doing that, rubbing this into his skin to help reduce the inflammation. We had every religion represented. You don't want to mess around in a situation like this. And I started him, and this is super important. I'd already had him on fish oil. Who here takes fish oil? Anyone who doesn't have their hand up, whoever's next, you get them on fish oil, because the reason he's here today, one of the key reasons he was able to get off that pavement and have a brain was he was on it before, and it protects your brain from a brain injury. Now, I also knew that it was critical for him to be on high-dose fish oil in the hospital, but you know what? The hospital didn't want to do it because they were afraid he would bleed out, despite the fact that there's not one piece of research to show that fish oil increases bleed times. And I couldn't convince them, despite the fact that I had Dr. Barry Sears and Dr. Michael Lewis, who worked with Julian Bales. They gave me all the research to give to the hospital board. They refused. So I gave it to them around their back. And It was amazing. We got them to give him 2 grams, which is like taking a Dixie cup of water and pouring it on a forest fire, right? He spit up his own feeding tube. This is how stubborn this kid is. He had a feeding tube, and it was a Sunday, and he was pointing at it, and I said, you can't get it out till Monday when the other doctor comes in, and he hacked it up. We might have helped a little. But we get this up, and then as far as I'm concerned, it's full game, like game on. We started upping his fish oil. Every time I knew they were gonna test his bleeding times, I gave him more fish oil. I had a NutriBullet in there. I was making him smoothies. I added in vitamin D and curcumin and all sorts of brain nutrients and amino acids. It was everything. And every time I gave it to him, I said, Grant, this is healing you. You're gonna be 110%. We've got this. You don't need to worry.
The Cal Jam Network is your all-access pass to Cal Jam all year long. The site hosts hundreds of videos and endless chiropractic content. The network is a great resource for anyone passionate about chiropractic health. Visit this newly renovated Cal Jam streaming service at caljamnetwork.org.